Hello and welcome to This One Thing, a daily video devotional coming to you from First Presbyterian Church of Fort Lauderdale. My name is Nick Merchant. I'm one of the associate pastors here. And each day, one of our pastors or staff members are going to be looking at one of the texts in the Revised Common Lectionary's daily readings, and we'll be pulling out one thing for you to consider. We hope that you find this an encouraging and thought-provoking part of your day. Enjoy. Last year, I read a story in USA Today about an 8-year-old boy who was attacked by a mountain lion. And the boy fought back by punching and kicking. He picked up a stick and was hitting the mountain lion with the stick and was able to buy enough time until the boy's father arrived and ultimately was able to chase the mountain lion off. The boy survived the attack. Had some serious stitches to show for his valiant effort in fending off his aggressor. But in talking about the experience later, the boy had this to share. The mountain lion is a cheater. No one tried to wrestle a mountain lion. It is a cheater. You know, of all the emotions or memories that this experience could have brought up for the boy, that this was what he held on to, that the mountain lion had not fought fairly. I think that there is this sense in each of us that things should be fair, that life should be lived on an even playing field, that things should be just, that things should be right. In our scripture for today, here in Mark in chapter 12, Jesus tells a parable, and in telling the parable, Jesus appeals to this sense in us that there should be justice, that things should be right. And he tells this story in the temple, in the presence of chief priests and religious leaders, about a man who purchases some land and turns it into a vineyard. And he leaves the vineyard in the hands of trusted tenants. And these tenants are meant to care for the land. They're meant to farm the land and ultimately reap a harvest. And then give some of that harvest back to the owner. And so the owner, this man, he sends some servants to go collect some of this harvest, and the tenants take the servant and beat the servant and throw the servant out of the vineyard, and so the man sends servant after servant after servant, and again these trusted tenants, they beat the servants. Sometimes they kill the servants and throw them out, until finally the man says, I'll send my son, because surely they will respect my son. And I want to read for you verses 7 and 8 today, and we read what happens with the son. It says, "But those tenants said to one another, 'This son, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and the inheritance will be ours.' And so they seized the son, killed him, and threw him out of the vineyard." This story, this parable, it would have been really clear to the listeners who Jesus was talking about and what Jesus was trying to say. A lot of times when Jesus tells a parable, he goes on to explain it later, or he'll pull aside the disciples and say, this is what the parable really meant. And here Jesus doesn't have to do that, because it would have been very clear what Jesus was talking about and who Jesus was talking about. The man represented God, and the listeners would have understood that. And the tenants, these trusted tenants, represented the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, or even more specifically, these chief priests, these keepers of the law who ran the temple. These were the trusted tenants that had been left in charge. And the son, well, you've probably guessed that the son was Jesus. And I think as we read this, it appeals to that sense of justice in us, and we think, gosh, this is just not right. We're left shaking our heads at the behavior of the tenants, and consequently at the chief priests. And we're reminded of what they are about to do, that they're about to do this very same thing, that they're going to seize the Son, that they're going to murder the Son. And we think, this just isn't right. It feels like they're cheating. But what does this parable say to us now? What does it say to us today? Because here's the one thing. We are now the trusted tenants. We are now the keepers of the vineyard. What will we do with the Son? It's a decision that we each have to make. What will we do with the Father's invitation to accept the Son and his counterintuitive ways of caring for the poor and the marginalized, of forgiving our enemies, of loving one another? What will we do with the Son?